Welcome to NFL TV, and it's a massive weekend of football in the NFL. In Division 1, it's the final round of the home and away season, and in Division 2 and 3, it's the first week of finals as well. So it's going to be a massive weekend, and Quinny, for Division 1, it's fitting that such an even and competitive year is going to come down to the last weekend of matches, and still either way, we don't know how it's going to pan out. There's 3 matches which are going to have a massive bearing on the top 5, and potentially the side sitting third in West Preston still has a chance of actually missing out on the finals. It is that close this year.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've been incredibly lucky all year to see some fantastic games, and then as you said, it's all come down to the last weekend, which there's nothing more we could ask for.
Well, on the weekend just gone, we saw a couple of upsets, more than a couple actually. The top 3 sides all go down in matches you would have fancied them in, and it makes it so interesting this week. But Montmorency can get a win last week against the top side in Bundoora by 11 goals and still somehow notch up inside the top 5. And going into the day, you had said that would happen. You would have thought that North could be in a bit of strife, but the Cougars got to win against Greensborough, and it makes it interesting because Greensborough and West Preston, they look safe at the moment, 3rd and 4th on the ladder, but if things don't go their way on the weekend and they do fall to heavy defeats, which could happen, it's not likely, but it could happen. We could see a scenario where 3rd and 4th side out and 5th and 6th actually go into the finals, and for Monty it'd be an amazing achievement considering they haven't actually been inside the top 5 at all this season, but no better time to sit inside than after round 18.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic for the Magpies if you think GB one of the first times, I can't remember another time when you think a team has scraped into the bottom spot in the finals in the last week of the season. So it'd be amazing if they can pull that off.
Well, as I said, 3 really big matches, and 2 probably you'd expect to go in terms of the favourite. Perhaps not so much in this first one. Look at it's Alston up against Whittlesea, and Whittlesea's been really good again in the last couple of weeks. Been really competitive. Got the win against North Heidelberg, a close loss to Montmorency a fortnight ago, and on the weekend travelled to West Preston, took on the reigning premier, and at half-time trailed by just 1 point. And we said going into the game it was a really dangerous game for West Preston. They've been struggling of late, went into the game with 3 straight losses, and Whittlesea really took it up to them, and which was a good effort. In the end, in the third quarter, got blown away, and that was what resulted as a 32-point loss, and all largely due to that third quarter. But encouraging signs there, and they've shown that they can play well at home and also play well away from their home ground at the showgrounds there. So a good effort there, and for Altham, a pretty comfortable win against North Heidelberg, to say the least. Just short of triple digits in the end, but it was also going to be a big day down at Shelley Street Reserve, the last time North Heidelberg plays in front of its home crowd in Division 1 for at least one season. So Altham did well to get the win there. And Whittlesea, despite losing, plenty of encouraging signs. It should be a good way for these 2 sides to go out. A pretty entertaining match, you would assume. And we actually saw it the first time they played each other, and it was really close all day, and Altham skipped away with the last 4 goals. I reckon they'll be winning by a similar margin on the weekend.
Yeah, it's freakishly consistent with Whittlesea. They kicked 7-7 in the first half and 7-7 in the second half. So it's just a little one we picked up then, but. Yeah, it's amazing, as you said, when we saw the teams play this year, Altham did sort of kick away a little bit, which is a trend we've seen a little bit with Whittlesea this year, which probably goes down to the fact they are a bit younger and they're not as experienced as some of the other teams. They've been pretty close all day, but then they'll have a little patch where the team just kicks away. Obviously, it happened in the third quarter this week, last weekend against West Preston, when West Preston we sort of got the jump on them after half time, and we saw it again with Monty really in that third quarter a few weeks ago, and they just had that patch we were able to get away from them, and obviously Altham did it earlier in the year in the last quarter. So you'd think that on form probably would happen again. But Whittlesea have been really good all year and have challenged the side. So definitely think they'll push Altham. But you'd think Altham's experience and just sort of bigger bodies and things in the end, you should probably get them across the line at the end of the season.
It's interesting with Whittlesea. They are a young side, and we've seen throughout the season they've been able to score heavily in short patches of time. But conversely, as you get, I guess, with youth, been able to concede a lot in a short period as well. So I guess you get one with the other with inexperienced sides, and I'm sure over time, once that playing group gets a few more games under their belt, you'll see a much improved side next year. And I reckon next year we're going to have a pretty even competition, just from the looks of how even it has been this year. Can't really imagine a side dropping away at the moment, with North Heidelberg obviously going down. It's going to be pretty interesting stuff as we look ahead. But in the short term, Heidelberg takes on North Heidelberg on the weekend. It'll be the Doggies' last game in Division 1, as I said, for at least a year, and they've never been down to Division 2, so it is their final game. So it'll be, I guess, a big farewell. But you'd imagine that at Warrnambool Park, the Tigers aren't going to take the game lightly. Still a massive chance to come first and get that first weekend off. You'd imagine they get the win in this one. Bundoора's got a really hard game this weekend, and Heidelberg, they've never sat first at all this season, and a chance for them to do so after this weekend. It could also come down to percentage as well, so you think they're going to really kick on in that one. Disappointing on the weekend against McLeod. I think last week on the show was another game we said it was a real danger game because McLeod has been playing some really good footy, particularly on their home paddock, and on the weekend they showed that how dangerous they can be on that home ground. They're a young side, they're a fast side, and just made Heidelberg look so really. Sol Caddy played in the middle, and they probably tried to use him as a bigger body to probably hit, maybe some bigger hits on those younger kids and make them a bit more sore. But in the end, just ran rings around Heidelberg, led it every change, and never looked like losing it. And as we mentioned before, North Heidelberg went down by 98 points to Altham. Shane Harvey kicking eight goals from all of North Heidelberg's 8 goals actually, and a good effort by him personally. They probably need a few more goal kickers down there, but it's all too late in the season. You just hope that they are competitive in their last game because you want them to go out on a good note. It's been such a memorable stint in the top flight, but you think that Heidelberg would win this one. Probably won triple digits.
Yeah, especially when you think it's a worry for not only for this season, but for next year with North Heidelberg. When by all accounts Shane Harvey's probably not going to actually not going to be at the club next year. Is what we heard over the weekend. So when you think they haven't had any other goal kickers, any other prolific goal kickers all year, they're going to have to really either try to find one and bring them into the club, or try to get one from promote one from somewhere. So otherwise they could be in a bit of strife in Division 2 because we've seen how even the competition Division 2 has been this year as well with some upsets in that. But I don't think Heidelberg will do them any favours on the way out. It might be a little bit of a chance. They've been big rivals, so it might be a little bit of a chance to sort of put the boots in on the way out a little bit, you might think. And as you said, it's definitely got all the makings of a triple-digit loss, unfortunately, for North Heidelberg.
I guess you couldn't have probably scripted it better. The two arch rivals taking each other on one final time before North Heidelberg bows out. But for Heidelberg, I think it's important for them to win big because they can probably really use that break in the first round. Everyone, I guess, can use it because they're all getting, I've seen Bandura especially, a lot of injuries late in the season, but Heidelberg's also had to come from so far behind. Of course, they were outside the top 5 after 7 rounds of the season. Had to work so hard to first of all get their season back on track, but also then to progress up the ladder. And you just think that they can get that first week off, have a break, and just refresh after what's been a pretty hectic probably 2 months. It'd be massive for them, but as we know, they're such a good side, and you probably think even with their backs to the wall, if they were to play in the final next week, they'd probably be able to come up against it because they've been doing it for years and probably know how to do it better than anyone else. But I reckon they'd really fight hard for that second spot to earn that 1 week's break. And for Northcote Park, they take on Bandura on their home paddock down at Bill Laurie Oval, and a massive win for the Cougars on the weekend. Knocked off Greensborough and did it pretty comfortably in the end, 50 plus points, and they knocked off Greensborough easily twice now. Both times Greensborough has to kick a goal in the first quarter. Last time around was for the first 3 quarters, and on the weekend Northcote Park, no real concerns, led comfortably at every change and went on in the end to really go on with the job in the last quarter, 6 goals to 3. And we do know that War Memorial Park hasn't been an easy ground for opposition clubs to score on, so a good effort for Northcote there. They were missing Bonnie Davies, who won't be back this year, so you can rule a line for his name, but also missing Nick Carter, who's probably their next best midfielder along with Paul Scanlon. So a few big outs and a massive win for them. For Bandura, conversely, just probably a match they just completely forget about. They were outdone in the end by 67 points against Monty. Kicked the first goal, and from then on never looked likely after Monty kicked 5 consecutive goals in the first term. As I said, probably a game to just completely wipe from the memory bank and start afresh this weekend. Do really need to win to keep hold of that first spot.
Yeah, it's a bit of a worrying loss. Obviously, you'd say to sort of wipe from the memory bank a little bit, but Bandura had one of those games against Eltham, I think it was 3-4 weeks ago now. So they've had, in the last month, they've had a couple of little slip-ups. Obviously, they've had some injuries and things like that, but they would be a little bit concerned at their form. You'd think after they were so dominant for the first, pretty much 3 months of the season, they've let it slip a little bit. But I think on their day, when they have all the cattle in the park, they're still the best side in Division 1, and hopefully for their sake, for finals, they'll get them all out there. And unfortunately for Northwood, I think they'll be a little bit fired up after, almost an embarrassing loss a little bit to Monty, who are obviously a big traditional powerhouse. So I think they'll come out really fired up and should be too good for Northwood, especially with a few injuries, and that would obviously open the door for Monty to steal 5th spot, much to the chagrin of John Seaton.
Yeah, well, it's such an even competition this year, and as you said, Northcote Park wins it with their assured finals. You would assume they've got a pretty handy percentage over Monty, and something drastic would have to happen in the Monty versus Preston game to change that. But conversely for Bandura, they lose this one, fall the second, because you would imagine Heidelberg would get the win against North Heidelberg. you come second, you're lining up either against Northcote Park, perhaps even a West Preston in the first week, and that's by no means an easy game. They have actually lost twice to Greensboro this year, beaten West Preston twice, and probably the Roosters will think they're due to knock off the Bulls at some point. So you play them in the first final, and then you're looking at playing perhaps either Greensboro, Northcote Park, or even Montmorency. Who knows in that second week? And again, that's another difficult one just to progress into a preliminary final. It's a complicated draw, I guess, this year, and if you don't have that first week off in a double chance, I tell you what, there's a chance that any side could go out in straight sets really this year, despite having the double chance in finals. So it's a massive game this weekend, and conversely for Northcote Park, they just need to win to make the finals, and they know anything less puts them in real jeopardy. Of course, West Preston can still knock off Monty and they'll scrape in even if they do lose the game, but you don't really want to be taking that risk, I would imagine. So all is at stake at Bill Laurie Oval. I reckon there'll be a massive crowd out there to watch that one. The next game is another real beauty. It's back at War Memorial Park at Greensboro, round out the season with two home games. Take on McLeod this time around. Lost in the first fixture between the two sides earlier this year. Lost by 27 points in a really low scoring game. I think that they only kicked 8 goals to about 13 in that one, and I'll be disappointed by that. Had a really good month before last week where they went down to Northcote Park, and it could be a case where they've upped the ante on the training track, and as sides tend to do, and they feel the effects about this time of the year in the hope of actually being peaking in that first week of finals. But now it's a massive game against McLeod, because as I said before, if things go completely astray for Greensboro, results go the other way, they could actually find themselves outside the top 5. It is unlikely, and I reckon they will bounce back against McLeod. The Kangaroos have been fantastic in the last 5 weeks and probably deserve a spot inside the top 5. Probably definitely a few of those close losses are going to cost them in the end. 3 games by under 7 points have gone down in Greensboro, though. You've seen them so many times on their home paddock, backs to the wall. They've got those wins against the likes of Heidelberg, away from home rather, and Bandura twice, beaten West Preston. They've had every now and then, probably about once every 5 weeks, they've had that flat day, and it probably happened on the weekend, but I really fancy them to actually win this one, and they do deserve to be playing in the finals after having such a magnificent season with a pretty young list at Jack Cole's disposal.
Yeah, Greensboro should be a little bit too good for McLeod. McLeod, probably about a year and a half off where Greensboro. Now, obviously, Greensboro had a pretty good year in times last year, but inconsistent. Probably cost them a spot in the finals in the end, where McLeod have been a little bit similar this year. So they probably look at Greensboro as a side they can actually take a fair bit from McLeod, building for the future. But they shouldn't get the win this week. You'd think McLeod will finish. They'll finish they'll make them 7th for the year, which is a pretty good return for them, considering they were nowhere near that sort of mark at the start of the year, according to a lot of people. But yeah, big week for Greensboro. They really want to sort of carry some winning form into the finals. They want to go in on the back of 2 losses, because even if they lost, you think they would still, in all likelihood, still sneak in. They might have, as you said, have a few things go. They have to have everything go against them to not make it. So yeah, but gee, it will be a tough game for them. McLeod will be no easy test.
Well, McLeod really, as I said, finishing the season on a high note, which is obviously a good way to build into next year. A lot of confidence will be gained, and they've done everything right, and I guess more so for them, nothing other than pride to play for, and for Greensboro, just so much at stake, and you just think that surely that will be enough to get them over the line. But as we've seen earlier this year, McLeod has knocked them off, and they've got some forwards in some good form. Nick Lynch has come back from the VFL and just dominating the competition. He absolutely killed Northcote Park 2 weeks ago, nearly single-handedly got his side over the line, just fell shortly in by 4 points on the weekend, kicked another 5 goals against Heidelberg. The young kid in Daniel Francis, the kid from the under-19s, comes up against the premier side in the competition, one who's been the powerhouse for 5 years and kicks 4 goals, and Kahal Kaur got another 3 to cap off a superb season. So the forward line's definitely informed that they can kick a big enough score. Greensboro, as we've seen in the past, like to keep it pretty tight on their home ground. So it'll be an interesting affair. And the final game to wrap up the round, and you almost couldn't imagine a bigger contest. It's West Preston at home to Montmorency, and the Roosters, as we said earlier in the program, a win that they just needed to have on the weekend, perhaps turn their form around. They had won 7 on the trot, and then had fallen to losses in 4 of their past 5. The first win came against North Heidelberg, which you would assume they would have actually won that one last week against a Whittlesea side, which is ever improving, and just a win they had to have for Monty. Probably put in their best performance of the year on the weekend, and have won actually 9 of their past 11 games. So I reckon there's a lot of opposition clubs probably hoping that West Preston gets the win, because Monty has just shown how dangerous they can be. And not only are they winning games, but they're flogging sides in that top 5. They've smashed Northcote Park going back 2 weeks now, where they won by, I think it was 58 points in the end, 67-point winners on the weekend. probably the only down day they've had in the past 2 months was against Heidelberg when they were well and truly smashed in pretty tough conditions out at Warrnambool Park. But as I said, I reckon there'll be a lot of sides inside the top 5 just hoping that West Preston gets a win because Monty's in such good form. It'd be a shame if they missed out, but I guess when you do lose the first 4 games, you have a pretty difficult task ahead of you. But I reckon Fab Corelli's going to give themselves every chance of winning that one despite being away at Moore Park.
Yeah, they've done incredibly well to get back into it. We were all pretty much saying they were gone when they lost those first 4 games after I think it was Greensboro we saw them lose the 4th one. But gee, it's just, as I said, just been a massive turnaround, and they should, on form, probably get the goods over West Preston, even though West Preston are at home, obviously. But gee, looking at the Roosters, I don't think there's been one week this year when Billy Morrison hasn't been listed in their best. Even when they lose, he still gets a spot in there. So just one of the most consistent players going around in the comp. And whenever we've seen West Preston's always pretty good. So he's obviously had a great year. It'll be pretty important again on the weekend. But yeah, it'll be. It's another massive game. But I think Monty should just sneak past the Roosters, and then obviously, they could almost be playing again first week of finals. So who knows what will happen with the next month of footy.
Well, for West Preston to slip out, as it currently stands, they're actually still a game above Monty, and they've got, I think it's 5% above, so you'd have to think they have to lose by at least 50 points against Monty to, first of all, have the Magpies jump them, and then, of course, the Cougars would also have to win to ensure that West Preston doesn't play finals.
Isn't beyond all.
Well, the way Monty's been playing, you just don't know what can happen there. I think both sides are really going to fancy their chances. They know what's at stake, so you're going to expect a fiery contest, and one both sides are up for. But for West Preston, Heath Shaw's back from Arizona, as we know, with the Collingwood Footy Club. So Anthony Rocker is also back. So whether he takes the field on Saturday, we're not too sure yet. We'll have to wait and see. But Simon Prestigiacono was another one who didn't play on the weekend. And with Dean Lim back in some red-hot form, you think Presti has to come back into the side if he is fit to take him on, because he's kicking goals left, right and centre in the last probably month or so, and he's just shot to the top of the goal-kicking ladder. He's probably into an unsurpassable league now. I think he's 7 clear of Gary Moorcroft, and he's just been... Well, he's really the player they have to stop. Monty's midfield has been so good, but he is their key forward, and for West Preston, the one player they need to stop. I guess there's 3 sides have to make the finals out of West Preston, Greensboro, Northcote Park and Monty. Who are the 3 you think will be there after this weekend's round of footy?
Greensboro, West Preston and Monty. Apologies to the Cougars, but
I reckon. Well, I mean, as it stands, I mean, if West it all pretty much hinges on that result. If West Preston wins,
if Monty loses, that'll
do it. But the way they've been playing, it's almost hard to be against them in any week. I reckon it's going to be tough for Northcote Park to beat Bandura, but I don't even know we've tried to tip between West Preston and Monty. A lot at stake, and we've seen from the Roosters that when they're at their best, they're almost unbeatable. But there's been times in the last 6 weeks where they just haven't looked like it. They need to win, probably, obviously to keep that final spot alive, but just to give them some confidence going in. And I reckon they actually are up for it. I don't even know which way to tip. It's going to be almost a flip of the coin game. So much rise. And at the moment, in current form, you have to think Monty would get the win in that one there. But as we've seen in the record, the expert tipsters in inverted commas have had such a hard run tipping in the Division 1 over the last couple of weeks, but there has been just so many surprises being thrown up. So that could go either way. But as it stands, I reckon Monty would really fancy the chances of making the top 5. But Northcote, the way Bandura has been in the past 3 weeks, Northcote will probably give themselves every chance of winning that one there. But I reckon they're going to have to win to make the finals this year. So that's all we have time for in the Division 1 program. Of course, as we said, it's going to be a massive weekend. Make sure you do yourself a favour and get around to a local ground, because you're going to have 5 games are going to be absolute belters, and I reckon you're a fool if you are just going to be sitting at home on the couch, because we have some pretty big games, and make sure you do tune in below as we preview the first week of finals in Division 2 and Division 3, where once again the action is going to be red hot. So don't go away, and make sure you tune into the video below.